Hello, my name's Duncan Brumby, Professor of Human-Computer Interaction at University College London. I'm going to tell you about some really interesting work done by Tassilo Bowman as part of his master's dissertation. It's looking at how to arrange icons on very small displays. Right, so when we think about how computer icons are usually arranged on displays, most commonly a grid arrangement is used. So you think about the desktop computer, grids of icons. You think about your phone, everything's laid out in a grid, whether that be on an iPhone or an Android phone. What motivated us was to think about what the change that happened when wearable devices, so smartwatches, first came out 5 years ago, and there was a shift here in the design of the layout of the home screen, moving away from this traditional grid to a more tightly packed honeycomb or hexagonal layout. And what we're interested in this project is to investigate whether this hexagonal layout actually helps people locate and select icons faster over a more traditional grid layout. That's the primary research question that we're concerned with here. In order to investigate this research question, we conducted an online experiment. Tassilo developed code to run the experiment that was published to the Apple store, and participants could download the app, and then they went through a series of search trials, and we gathered their data. What we looked at in this experiment was the impact of 4 different design features. One of these was the layout, but we also looked at 3 additional design features to see how they might interact with layout, if there's an effect there, to learn more about how these design choices are influencing people's search behavior. To give you an idea of how this study worked, I want to play a simple game with you. So what I'd like you to do is to locate in the following display this pink icon with an alarm clock on the front of it. Okay, you got it? Okay, so in using this search paradigm, we're going to ask participants to locate specific icons in display, and we're going to vary across trials 4 different design features: layout, spacing, color, and location. I'm going to tell you about each of these 4 design features we're manipulating in turn. So the first one is layout, and this is what drove the work. And what we're doing here is comparing a traditional grid layout to this honeycomb hexagonal layout, and we're seeing if there's any difference here in search performance across these 2 layout choices, keeping the number of icons the same in both conditions. In addition to this layout, what we're also going to look at is spacing. So we're going to have items come in and be packed close together, like they would be on a very small display like a smartwatch, and we're also going to afford them to become pulled more further apart to increase the spacing. We also look at colour, so this is being driven by an ecological concern. So when we think about the icons that are used on things like smartwatches or smartphones, there's often quite a limited palette there of background colours which are used, and sometimes there are rarer colours that are used, more unique, and so we're looking at that in our study here. What we're going to do is vary the number of icons in the display that share the same colour. So as you can see here, we've got a whole series of, so there are 6 pink icons, 6 orange icons, and 6 blue icons, and then only 2 green, 2 purple, and 2 turquoise. And what happens now is if we make the target, say, a purple item, so there's 1 purple item that's target, that means there's 1 other item in the display that's going to be a distractor, so a non-target competing for attention. And then the final factor that we're interested in, this is kind of an interesting one, is to look at location. And so when we think about, say, looking for an icon on our phone, Our phone home display tends to be fairly stable over time. Only if you go about rearranging the icons or say downloading a new app do things tend to be moved around. Often, day after day, our home screen remains fairly stable with icons in the same position. So this means that you can often know where stuff is, so where your email is, or where your browser is, or where your music is. You can often think whereabouts that is on your home screen, and you have learned that location over time because it's in a stable position. So the way we implemented this in our study was to have participants search for different icons from one trial to the next, so they're searching for different items, but they're searching the same display layout. So that's staying stable, so they're able to, in this case, learn locations. While this is incredibly common in the real world, so it's got high ecological validity, you'll be surprised to learn it's actually quite rare in these types of visual search experiments. What often happens in this literature has been people have designed studies that use changeable stimuli on each trial. So what you often find is that from one trial to the next, the location of icons is shuffled around. And so what we had here was a changeable menu. So to recap, there are 4 design features we're looking at here: layout, spacing, color, and location. We recorded accuracy, search accuracy. Very quickly, that was incredibly high. Vast majority of searches were accurate on the first attempt. What we're also interested in is search time, so how long it took the participant to select an icon. And what we're going to look at is search time for correct selections only. In terms of the main effects here, there was no main effect of layout or spacing, but there was some interesting interactions. I'll get to that in just a moment. There was, however, main effects of color and location. So as expected, when there were fewer distractors that shared the same color as the target, searches were faster, and when location of icons within the display was stable, searches were faster because people were able to learn where stuff was. In terms of this interaction effect, there was something going on here in terms of a difference between the grid and the hexagonal layout, but only in very specific situation. That situation was when there was many same color distractors, so there were 5 other things that shared the same color as a target, and items were packed in very close together. In this situation, the hexagonal layout was afforded faster searches than a grid layout. So to conclude, in terms of this hexagonal layout, we did find a benefit, but only when there were many of these same color competing distractors and when things were tightly packed in together. In this situation, the hexagonal layout did win out. It was faster to search than a grid layout. And curiously, it's under this particular set of conditions, of course, that the watch operates. There is a limited selection of background colors used on the app icons, and items are very much tightly packed in together in a very small display. So basically, in short, they had it right here. Moving away from the grid layout to this kind of honeycomb hexagonal layout does afford faster searches in this particular situation. So thank you very much for your time. My name is Doug Brumby, and I was presenting work that was conducted by Tassila Bowman as part of his master's dissertation in human-computer interaction at UCL in London. And we learnt about how arranging icons on small displays can be done, and this idea that hexagonal layouts do win out under very specific situations. Thank you very much.